Hello, folks. Welcome in. Welcome in. Hope you are doing well. Feel free to share your name and where you're calling in from in the chat. My name is Rachel. I'm one of our social justice organizers here at the Workers Circle, and I'm based in Orlando, Florida. And it is so great to have you all here today.
Thanks for joining, y'all. We'll get started in just a moment. We're just going to let a few more folks jump on here. We're just 1 minute past the hour. So, yeah, please do introduce yourselves in the chat. Let us know where you're zooming in from tonight, and we'll get started in just a few moments.
And thank you for being here with us tonight. I know there's a lot of other programming happening tonight, and thanks for being here with us and learning how you can enact change and demand democracy and fight fascism in your community. So, a perfect way to spend this evening and learn how if the Democracy Circles model is right for you, and I really hope that it is, and I think it will be. But um, yeah, thank you so much for being here. I know that there's a lot of other programming happening tonight, so thank you so much for choosing us. So.
Yes. Between the State of the Union, which is at 9 Eastern, and then I know there's lots of counter programming happening with a lot of our partners that we're excited to be a part of. Hopefully, we'll get you out in time to catch all of that. So really appreciate, like Rachel said, you being with us for this window of time here, and plenty of time for all of the other great stuff coming this evening, and very appropriate given that the State of the Union is tonight. That we'll be talking about the true State of the Union and what we can do to defend it and to strengthen it.
And we've got a wonderful spread of people across the country, Wisconsin, Oregon, Washington, Massachusetts. Andrea's in Virginia. Rio is in DC or right outside of DC. And I'm down here in Florida. So Utah, awesome. Well, let's not hold it back any longer. Let's get started. So, as I said, my name is Rachel. I am the social justice organizer for Florida here at the Workers Circle, and I'm based in Orlando, Florida. The Workers Circle is a national secular Jewish social justice organization that is rooted in Yiddish culture. We were founded by Eastern European immigrants who came to the United States fleeing autocracy and persecution and seeking democratic freedoms at the turn of the 20th century. That history drives our work for an inclusive democracy and human equality today. Our organization is rooted in Jewish culture, but you do not have to be Jewish to be part of our activist community. We welcome all who share our values and wish to build a better, more beautiful world for all. Tonight, we're going to introduce you to Democracy Circles as a way to build power and community in the place where you live. One quick note before we get started, everyone will receive all of these slides and the recording in a follow-up email. Additionally, we'll have a good chunk of time at the end after the presentation for Q&A. So if you could hold your questions or put them in the chat and we can go through them at the end, that would be great. But we're not going to be answering questions throughout the presentation. And I'm going to kick it over to Rio to introduce himself.
Thanks so much, Rachel. I'm Rio Tazwell. Work with the Workers Circle on a variety of campaigns, helping to develop different strategies and tactics nationally with Worker Circle members and Democracy Circle members in close coordination with a wide network of partners to defeat fascism and defend democracy, which we are, of course, here to talk about tonight, with Democracy Circles being one of our flagship programs through which we do this really important organizing work. And we're proud to partner with the Center for Common Ground on this training and lots of our programming in general. I'll hand it to Andrea Miller in just a few moments to tell us more about the really important work that she helps to lead at the Center for Common Ground. For those of you that perhaps are less familiar with the Center for Common Ground, they are a nonpartisan Black and women-led voting rights organization that was founded in 2018. They work in voter suppression states where more than 20% of voters are voters of color. So we're talking about places like Alabama, Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Virginia, where I am, and where Andrea is as well, and a lot of the team at Center for Common Ground, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Texas, among other places, collaborating with local partners. Center for Common Ground strives to mobilize all voters of color, particularly those who consistently participate in elections, and those who have yet to exercise their right to vote. And with our rights and freedoms and our, frankly, our very democracy under attack and under threat, it is more important than ever that we build power and support one another on the ground in our communities. And we are honored and thrilled to have Center for Common Ground as one of our most stalwart partners in that work. So with that, Andrew, can I kick it over to you to introduce yourself a little bit more?
Andrew, you are muted.
Definitely. I'm
Yes.
unmuted. I got it. So thank you, Rio. I'm Andrea Miller, and I'm with Center for Common Ground. And I thank you. Love the postcarding that you do with Center for Common Ground. So right now, we are working in Wisconsin, postcards, phone banks, and we discovered something really, really upsetting in Wisconsin when we purchased the voter file for Black voters in Milwaukee. We discovered that out of 190,000 Black voters, only 86,000 were still registered. So we ended up having to do two phone banks. One phone banks to people who had been thrown off the voting rolls, letting them know that they had been dumped off, and another phone bank to people who could still vote, letting them know about the Supreme Court election that's coming up in April 7th. So we really, really are working to protect democracy because democracy really and truly is in crisis. So I may say a couple of other things later on, but I'm going to kick it back to you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Andrea. And as she said, they are really some of the most effective people in this line of work when it comes to phone banking and postcarding. And we are thrilled to partner with them on a regular basis every election, including the one coming up in Wisconsin for the Supreme Court race, as Andrea just mentioned. So that's one of the things that we're working with our democracy circles on right now, and is a common theme in our democracy circles organizing work is turning people out for elections. And of course, we have a lot of elections coming up this year. So I think we can go ahead and kick it over to the next slide, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty of what we're here to discuss tonight. But before we kind of dig into the nuts and bolts of what is a democracy circle and what does it involve and what sort of support do you get from the Workers Circle and Center for Common Ground if you choose to go down this path. We have this quote here from, of course, the one and only John Lewis. May he forever rest in peace and power. When you see something that is not right, you have a moral obligation to say something, to do something. And that really sums it up. I mean, we work and we strive to live up to this quote and the sentiment that it embodies. And of course, to honor the legacy of civil rights leaders like John Lewis, who have really shown the way to making progress in this country. And it comes down to talking with one another, which is a really important part of the process and a big part of what we do and help facilitate through democracy circles, talking with our neighbors, talking with our community members, talking with our friends, with our family, but perhaps more importantly, doing something together. And that's the other critical part of the equation that we provide a really comprehensive framework for with democracy circles. We talk, we learn, we educate, and then we take action. We do something every month together, and we provide all the tools and the frameworks and information that you need to do that. So with that, let me kick it back over to Rachel, and we can dive in.
Thank you, Rio. Yes, let me go. Ooh, not there. There we go. So you'll see the slogan of democracy circles is demand democracy, fight fascism. At this moment in our nation, democracy is under attack at a speed and magnitude that we've not seen before in our lifetimes. Those attacks look like a rise in voter suppression laws and voter roll purging, as Andrea was just talking about, the weakening of institutions and agencies that implement laws, regressive judicial decisions that are undoing rights and precedents, and extremists who are willing to use threats and even violence to achieve their aims. You can imagine that it carries weight for a Jewish organization to say fight fascism. We do not use these words lightly. Among our members are and leaders are descendants of Holocaust survivors who know how democracy was destroyed in Europe during World War II. As a Jewish organization, we feel a particular responsibility to name the rise of fascist politics in the United States. We are not saying that America is a fascist regime. Our democracy is still standing, but it is being actively compromised by anti-democratic leaders and removal of checks and balances that have long defined liberal democracy in America. We believe that by naming it fascism, we can better understand and fight it together. Each democracy circle is initiated by a circle convener, or two co-conveners, who picks a monthly meeting time and place. Then they bring together people they know in person or on Zoom to take action and to explore how we counter attacks on our democracy right now. We provide the resources, goals, and training, and you bring your passion and your people. There are several scholars who have been working diligently to help us see this rise in fascist politics in the US and around the world and fight back against it. Some of these thinkers are Timothy Snyder, Yale author of On Tyranny and Road to Unfreedom, Jason Stanley, author of How Fascism Works, and Ruth Ben-Ghiat, the author of Strong Men. Their work grounds our understanding of fascism and how to push back against it, informing the Democracy Circles model. The core purpose of Democracy Circles is to involve people in learning about our democracy and taking action to strengthen it. The best answer to fascist politics is engage citizens who know American history, who understand the building blocks of democracy, and who take action together to ensure political equality and the full participation of all Americans. Simply put, democracy circles are small groups of people who gather together once a month to build community, learn, and take action for our democracy. And before we continue with the presentation, I want to pause and ask you a question. And you can feel free to put your answer in the chat. But when it comes to taking action, are you more likely to get going and learn while you act? Or do you want to learn about an issue and then take action? Learn, then act. Get going and learn while I act. I like that, Andrea.
And it doesn't need to be either or, it can be both. Yeah, and don't be shy. It can be any combination of these things. And sometimes it's situational, but oftentimes people do prefer one or the other.
Learn, then act. Learn while I act. Get going and learn on the job. Well, thank you everyone for answering. Democracy circles are, in fact, a circle. So it doesn't matter where you start this in the cycle of action and reflection. You can build power and community by starting with action or with learning. Now, we'll tell you a little bit more about how to get a circle off the ground. Democracy circles build grassroots power by gathering and equipping the people that you're already connected with. This is an adaptable model that can take the form you need and meet in the way that makes sense. Your democracy circle may meet around a kitchen table, in a church basement, after regular protests, or in a coffee shop. Your circle might include family members, friends, neighbors, people you know from your church or synagogue, members of your book club or community garden or union. Democracy circles are an entry point for people who want to do something about the loss of our rights and the erosion of our democracy. The Worker Circle staff supports democracy circles in several key ways. First of all, we provide what's called a convener guide. which suggests a recommended topic and action for democracy each month. We created these monthly guides after hearing from so many of our community members that they felt overwhelmed by the attacks on our democracy and weren't sure where to plug in. Worker Circle staff help work through this challenge by providing a suggested topic and meeting agenda for conveners to use each month. Circles use the guides to learn about a political issue or bill and then take a concrete advocacy step. The suggested actions vary from month to month. Examples from earlier this year included learning about the SAVE Act, a dangerous voter suppression bill, which is back, as many of you may have heard. Democracy Circle conveners were provided information from trusted sources like the ACLU and the Brennan Center for Justice about the SAVE Act's contents and potential impact. The convener guide for that month laid out steps for democracy circles to make calls to their congressperson about this bill, and then even plan an in-person visit to their representative's local office. Other months, our convener guides encourage democracy circles to participate in the No Kings mass mobilizations and to reach out to their local sheriffs to put pressure on them to cease collaborations with ICE. The monthly convener guide provides a starting place and are intended to be the floor and not the ceiling of your activism. And here are a couple of the current, this is the February 2026 convener guide. We put these convener guides out quarterly, so you get them at the beginning of a quarter, and it has for the next few months. So here is the convener guide for January and February of this year, and very brief summaries of what the convener guides look like and what your agenda and what your meeting with your democracy circle may look like in the month of January and February.
And Rachel, I'll just jump in for a
Yeah.
second here, and just add that these are little snapshots of sort of like the table of contents, if you will, for different months.
Mhm.
The actual convener guide, I think this quarter is about 20 something pages. So it's very, very meaty, very beefy, lots of information. And then we actually link to lots of other resources as well. So as you'll see, for January, we were focusing on constitutional rights, resisting the militarization of law enforcement. And a lot of the curriculum for January actually involved around a really comprehensive toolkit that was put together by our partners at ACLU. And so our January section was a few pages, but it linked to several other toolkits that were dozens of pages long. I mean, really incredibly thorough um, resources with all kinds of practical information, legal information, strategic information that you can use in your organizing. So we try to distill it as much as possible so that you're not reading dozens of pages and provide a summary, but that if you do want to kind of do a deep dive, that source material is often linked to in the convener guides as well. And we'll talk more about the individual pieces of the convener guides in a little bit, but just wanted to add that in here.
Thank you, Rio. Rio spent a long time putting together these convener guides the last few months, the last few quarters. So we really appreciate Rio putting together the convener guides and making such comprehensive, wonderful documents. So let us continue. Okay, so some circles meet more than once a month and take on additional actions and projects in coalition with other groups. You might form a circle that is deeply passionate about environmental justice or excited about a local candidate for office. Circles are encouraged to stay civically engaged in all kinds of ways. But our convener guides help to align worker circle activities across the country on shared priorities and give us a jumping off point in a chaotic political environment. Apart from the convener's guide, the Worker Circle also provides Democracy Circle conveners with one-on-one support with myself, with other members of our team, such as myself or Rio or other members of our always growing social justice team. New conveners are connected with an organizer like Rio or myself who will check in with you about once a month to talk through any roadblocks your circle is confronting and to answer questions you may have about the monthly focus. Once a quarter, we hold special Zoom calls for our conveners. They're really lovely. They're one of the highlights of my of like any month that I have. And Democracy Circle leaders from across the country come online to share success stories and best practices. And Andrea is there with other with members of with her the Democracy Center leaders as well. Um, and we build in moments for reflection and community building so that participating in democracy circles feels connective and sustainable. So let's take a step back from the nitty gritty of democracy circles and talk about the approaches to to working for change in this room already.
So, thanks, Rachel. We just put a question in the chat that we would love for you to answer, in the chat, if you don't mind. I'll read it out loud. When working for change, is it easier for you to start something new or to sustain existing work? Andrea says it's easier to start something new. Yes, for some folks, it's definitely easier to take on something fresh, getting started, ground floor, build it up from there. I know from experience, it's oftentimes easier for some folks to sustain existing work as well. I'm seeing people weighing in on both sides here. Easier to sustain, says Linda. I feel like that is often the case for a lot of folks. Hansa says easier to start something new, but learning how to sustain, and it's not always either or. You know, there's a lot of subjectivity to this type of work. The context is important. But yeah, it's always interesting to hear from folks about whether it's easier for them to get started with something new or to start from scratch. But no matter what, I have some good news for you because democracy circles can help you tackle both. They can help you get started from the ground floor of organizing. If you've never organized anything before, we give you all the tools and information that you need to get started from square one. Um, and we also provide an ongoing structure and resources and support to help your circle get off the ground and to connect with others. We really designed this program to create a level playing field with democracy circles. There's folks that are participating in organizing for the very first time, and then there's people on the other end of the spectrum who have been maybe organizing for years, maybe even decades, and they all find some value and some utility and lots of support in democracy circles. And we give people the opportunity to learn from one another as well. As Rachel kind of said, well, at least once a quarter, we bring everyone together to talk, interact, and learn from one another. And that's one of the many occasions where more seasoned organizers, whether it be through democracy circles or through other organizations, can interact and share their experiences with folks who are maybe just starting out for the very first time organizing and a brand new democracy circles. But don't worry, I really want to emphasize there's absolutely no experience needed to start a democracy circle. We really are ready to meet folks where they're at square one. So with that in mind, let's look at some of those resources in a little bit more detail. I think we should have. Sorry, I got multiple screens open here. Rachel, are you still sharing your screen? Okay.
I am, yes.
Okay, that's good. For some reason, I can't see it, but that's okay.
Okay.
I'll trust that the right slide's up. So my apologies.
No worries.
So yes, let's review the resources the Worker Circle provides, our Democracy Circle conveners, and then we'll take a closer look at them. So we have in front of us a getting started guide and outreach tips for starting your circle. This is for folks, as I mentioned, who maybe have never organized anything in your entire life. We wrote out a pretty comprehensive guide for how to get started from step one onwards. And then soon after that, outreach tips are really important for getting started. You got to find other people to organize with. And oftentimes it's not as complicated as you might think. These are folks that maybe you have had conversations with in your own life about current events. Anyone that you know maybe even has a passing interest in politics. Um, there's really, tried and true tactics for engaging in these dialogues and doing the outreach and even broadening your scope of outreach to folks that maybe you don't already have relationships with. Our outreach guide really gives you a comprehensive set of tools and template language even to do that outreach. We've got our of course, as Rachel already sort of shared, we've got our conveners guide. It's a monthly guide. We release it quarterly, so 3 months at a time. Every month has a framework for a meeting that you can hold, including discussion topics, source reading to help provide information for those discussions, and then crucially, suggested action that month. Step-by-step guides for how to take action on that issue of the month. And sometimes we are updating these guides in real time depending on current events. There's a lot happening really fast. So while we do plan in advance quarterly, we are also very nimble in that we are responding to stuff as it happens. And oftentimes it dovetails quite nicely with what we've already been planning. As we've already sort of talked about, we have these quarterly calls where we bring together conveners from across the country for connection and inspiration from one another. But crucially, we also provide one-on-one support. And this is something that really differentiates the Worker Circle from other organizations that have like distributed organizing models. Um, is that there's a Worker Circle organizer who's available really anytime you need them to answer questions, to jump on a call, to troubleshoot anything that you might be dealing with as an organizer. Organizing is hard work, As someone who spent almost my entire adult life organizing, I can totally relate to the challenges and the frustrations that are inherent in this type of work. And that's why it's so valuable to have someone that you can talk to about what you're dealing with and to get suggestions, to get resources, and even just to vent sometimes a little bit because it's hard work, especially in this climate that we're in. So no matter where you are in your evolution as an organizer, having someone to help provide feedback and resources can be really, really helpful. And that's something that the Worker Circle is able to provide. And then also finally, we provide additional Democracy Circle discussion resources. We've got a quite an extensive library of discussion resources, all different types of source material, from looking at really important Supreme Court cases to historical kind of pretext that's important for understanding the current political landscape. Really, kind of anything that you can think of, we've kind of thought about what sort of foundational information is important to kind of set the stage for people to do this organizing and to get people to take action. So we've really compiled a very large catalog of resources, some of which we've kind of written ourselves, some of which we've kind of compiled from other sources and reports and articles that we've found that are helpful and relevant. So let's see here. For some reason, I'm still not seeing Rachel's screen. So I'm assuming that this is up. Let's go ahead and talk about the Getting Started guide. The Getting Started guide, as we kind of said already, will help you get started, as the name implies, with your Democracy Circle. It really provides a convener everything they need to not only start but also to sustain. That's half the battle at least is keeping it going. Getting started can be hard, but keeping it going can also be difficult. And the Getting Started guide really gives you lots of practical tips for doing that. And as I kind of already mentioned, the outreach guide offers you lots of helpful strategies and tactics for doing outreach. Perhaps you're a longtime postcarder with the Center for Common Ground, but you've been postcarding alone and not quite sure how to reach out to others. Our Getting Started guide and outreach tips help you connect with others in your community online or in person. And we know that it often takes many attempts to gather people, even when they're interested. And we have some advice on how and when to persist. I feel like persistence really pays off, but you want to be tactful. You want to be strategic. You don't want to come on too strong or push people away. And it's a fine line sometimes, but we've got a lot of tips and tricks that we have found to be effective in getting folks to say yes and then to show up. Um, and we've learned a lot from the folks we're organizing with about what works well in terms of outreach. So moving on to the next slide here, if you're thinking about starting a democracy circle, who would you think about reaching out to? Many of us gather with people every day. Um, in our own lives, maybe have had conversations about current events, uh, and would imagine that some folks are interested in perhaps taking the next step and getting active. So let's take some time to think about who you could invite to your democracy circle, or what established group are you a part of that might be interested in forming a democracy circle, or at least using some of the democracy circle resources and tools that we put out there. So in the chat, if you could drop the name of at least one person or maybe group of people that you would invite. And really get creative here. This could be your bowling team. It could be alumni from your high school or college or grad school. It could be members of your family. We've got some Democracy Circle conveners who have literally organized their immediate and extended family into a Democracy Circle. It's amazing. It could be your walking buddies. It could be your neighbors. It could be your friends from the senior center. It could be people that you've met at the grocery store. It could be people that you know from work. It could be people from your church or synagogue. Really, it can be anybody. Um, and I see some people dropping some ideas in the chat. This is great. So yeah, it really, really can be anyone. Thank you for answering our question. It's really great. It's a great exercise to kind of think about who in our lives could we maybe start with in terms of doing outreach. And that's really just the starting point, because from there you can use the outreach guide, the getting started guide, to cast a wider net and to reach out to more folks, which is really the first job of the convener. So let's talk for a moment a little bit more about the role of the convener, that person who gets the circle started. So what does a convener do? As we spoke about earlier, the convener picks a meeting time and a place, as Rachel said. That can be online, it can be in person, and gathers people that they may know each other, they may not know each other. But the number one role of the convener is to convene, as you would imagine. But Democracy Circle conveners don't have to be major leaders in their community. Conveners can just be regular people. It's totally okay if you get nervous speaking in front of a crowd, or if you've never organized anything before. You, again, cannot stress this enough. You do not need any experience to do this. We've seen people start from square one and become really successful organizers. It really doesn't require any sort of experience. We're here to help you every step of the way. And of course, you're always allowed to co-convene with someone else. Co-conveners is a great way to go about it. So that's always an option as well. So yeah, you may be wondering, beyond convening, what does a convener actually do? So yeah, so it reaches out to people they know and invites them to join, sets a time and a place for gathering to take action and learning, of course. Uh, and then crucially, the convener is the one that reviews the materials that we provide, namely the convener's guide for each month, pulls from that, and then sets the topic, sets the agenda, sets the goals for their circles meeting each month. So you're taking what we're providing in terms of a framework, deciding what fits for your group and maybe what doesn't, and substituting other things. It's very flexible. But oftentimes, people just take the suggested action for the month, that's a suggested reading for the month. They use that to put together their agenda, and then they're able to run the meeting with all that content. But it's up to the convener to kind of set the agenda and often run the meeting as well. And we provide even scripts. We provide really detailed frameworks for how to do it. So again, if you're not comfortable public speaking, we literally have scripts that you can use to run your meetings, especially towards the beginning. And then you figure out the cadence. We always suggest that people meet once a month. Some people meet more, some people meet less. Again, very flexible, but that's really up to the convener to determine the cadence, how frequently you meet, in addition to, of course, when and where and all of that stuff. And then, yes, the convener is also the one that we invite to our quarterly convening of conveners, if you will. Although we do invite members of Democracy Circles to attend, we really encourage the conveners to show up, because we want them to share about their experiences convening and learn from other folks who are convening circles as well. And so let's take a second to just do a little case study, if you will. We've got lots of really fantastic Democracy Circle conveners across the country who are doing incredible work. But just want to share for a second a little bit of information about a woman named Susan Hudson. She's in Boise, Idaho. Um, and she is really doing an incredible job as a Democracy Circle convener, and really just a great case study for how she has taken the suggested actions that we provide in the convener's guide and put them in motion and gotten a lot of people engaged in the process. I think one of her earlier actions that really took off was doing some tabling around the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. I believe this was last summer or last fall. They did tabling in their community and got a ton of new signups for their Democracy Circle by just being out in the community with a table with literature about this really important voting rights bill that we were building support for at the time and continue to build support for. And we're able to engage in a lot of conversations that ultimately led to a lot of folks signing up and getting involved in their Democracy Circle moving forward. Another more recent example of some of the success she's had is through our Talk to Your Sheriff program, which is an ongoing program. I don't think we've mentioned, in addition to a suggested action each month, each quarter, we also have some ongoing campaigns, which are sort of an option any month, anytime to get engaged in. And Talk to Your Sheriff is one of those actions where we give people training and information to set up meetings with their sheriff and encourage them to not cooperate with ICE in doing immigration enforcement. Without kind of getting into the weeds of the legal aspect of it all, sheriffs have an option to comply or not with the federal government. It's called a 287G agreement that they have autonomy in deciding whether or not they're going to enter into these agreements with the federal government or not to conduct immigration enforcement. And so, given that sheriffs are elected leaders, we are mobilizing people across the country to meet with their sheriff and to let them know that they do not want them to enter into these agreements. They do not want them to be doing ICE's bidding. And Susan was one of our early Democracy Circle conveners who successfully met with her sheriff, and that she convened a really incredible group of people to come with her, including some faith leaders. I believe a local elected official came with her for that first meeting as well. And they have since continued to be in touch with their sheriff. I know that they sent a round of letters from community members to their sheriff and continue to remind them that they are actively organizing on this issue and that they do not want their sheriff to enter into one of these agreements. And as a result of all of this amazing organizing work, Susan got an incredible article written about her in the Idaho Capital Sun. I will go ahead and drop that in the chat if you want to. Oh, it looks like Rachel already did. Really terrific article about the work that she's doing, and that's what can come of this type of organizing. You really can make a difference, and people pay attention to that, and it can really inspire others as well. And Susan is a great case study of that. So with that, let me hand it back over to you, Rachel.
Thank you so much, Rio. I hope this presentation has helped to explain the Democracy Circles model, the role of the conveners, and the resources and support that conveners receive from us at the Workers' Circle. So, what are the next steps? Sign up to convene a circle. One of our organizers will set up a time to talk with you by phone or Zoom. We will walk through everything we discussed today in case you need a refresher or have any questions. We'll think together about what your circle will look like, and we'll talk about your ideas and hopes for what you can do with your circle. We hope you will join us to build a truly multiracial, multicultural democracy. With more than 50 active circles ranging in size from 3 or 4 friends to more than 100 activists with their own newsletter across the country, Democracy Circles are currently meeting in Boise, Idaho with Susan Circle, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Denver, Colorado, Berkeley, California, Durham, North Carolina, Brooklyn, New York, and everywhere in between. So, let's open it to Q&A, and feel free to come off mute or drop your questions in the chat.
Yeah, yeah, Hansa.
Thank you. I have two questions. The first one is, are there, ha- will we, I'm assuming we'll be able to find out if there are any other democracy circles in our city.
Mhm.
Um, and I think it would be good to also coordinate with them as well, I would think. And my second question is actually for Andrea. Uh, During the postcarding, one of my very good friends is actually a mail carrier, and he suggested that we put or current resident when addressing the postcards. I wasn't sure if we should be doing that, so I just wanted to get your idea on that. And you don't have to give me an answer right away, but that is a question. He said that a lot of times postcards are undeliverable because the person has moved. And he deals with a lot of postcarding. So I just wanted to ask that question.
We had thought of that, and then we decided because we are writing our postcards to very specific individuals, we didn't want to add that or current resident. I will take that back to the team. And this was back in 2020. I think this is definitely something that we can revisit, looking at the literally nearly doubling in the price of stamps. When we started doing this in 2019, a postcard stamp was 35 cents. Now it's 65 cents. It's a world of difference. So thank you for that. I will take it back to the team and we will think about that one. We will give that consideration.
And yeah, I'll just jump in on your first question. Yes, absolutely. As a first step, we can let you know if there are any other active democracy circles in your area. And you all, I'm sure, have seen the link that Rachel and I have been dropping in the chat to take the next step, just to go into a little bit more detail what that is. So if you sign up to have a one-on-one conversation, um, you'll be meeting with myself or Rachel, one of our other organizers, and that's where we would sort of get to know each other a little bit more, and you can share obviously where you live, and we can let you know if there's other active circles in your area and whether it might make sense for you to just plug into one of those. That said, we absolutely encourage folks to still start their own circle if they're interested, even if there is one in their area, especially if it's like a major city, like for instance New York. There's multiple other cities. There's multiple democracy circles, so definitely not a problem to have more than one. It can be really helpful to coordinate with them, especially around different campaigns or major mobilizations. For instance, one of the things that we're doing with democracy circles in March, coming up next week, is getting ready for No Kings 3. We're partners in the No Kings Coalition, so we'll be helping to organize No Kings events all across the country, and encouraging democracy circles to anchor an event if they want to, or just to show up to their local event. And so for those types of situations in particular, it's really important to kind of coordinate with other groups in the area. But yeah, if you sign up for one of those one-on-one conversations, we'll be able to kind of cover all of that, and you can share about um, any other groups that you're involved in as well that might be relevant in terms of benefiting from democracy circles.
I will really quickly add on to what Rio is saying. Even if there are, even if there are circles in your city, we highly, highly, highly encourage you to start your own, because your connections hold power, and joining in another group is losing those connections and power. So working together, absolutely. But creating those connections and bringing those people in and building that power together is the most important thing. Strength in numbers, all that stuff. So we really encourage you, even if there is another circle in your city, to not automatically gravitate towards joining that circle, but to start your own.
Any other questions? No question is too small or too basic. This is what this call is for, to just give you any sort of insight, information that might be helpful in deciding whether or not this is something that you're interested in doing. And if you can't think of a question now, but you think of one later, you can absolutely reach out to us. Rachel, I don't know if we've shared you may have our one of our emails already, since you found your way on this call, but we can also share our contact information. And then I'm sure, yes, since you were on this call, you'll be receiving a follow-up email as well. That Rachel just put her email in the chat. And then you'll also be receiving an automated follow-up email, that will also provide a way to get in touch with us. So if you think of a question later, then you can absolutely let us know.
So, Seema, that is an excellent question. So you are not the first person to ask about Democracy Circle work internationally. Um, at the moment, our work is focused on the US, but we would love to work with you and figure out a way for you to do some of this work outside of the US. So, yeah, let's talk. You're not the first person to ask about international democracy circles. So, we don't have anyone international at the moment, but we would love to, and we would love to figure out something for you to do. I'm so sorry if you can hear a dog barking.
Last call for questions. If not, yeah, with this has also been recorded, so we can make that available to you. And if there's folks that you think might be interested, feel free to forward it to them, and you can also encourage them to join us next month. We typically do these every month, so we absolutely encourage and welcome anyone else that might be interested. Anything else, Rachel or Andrea, that we wanna share before we close?
I was just going to say, I'm going to be meeting with one of our organizers to talk about what we might do. She just moved to the UK and she's going to be there for 5 years. So we are looking at and she is the secretary for Americans abroad. So we will be exploring early next week what they might be able to do from abroad.
So we will get you some information, Seema. I am more than happy to talk about this a little bit further. We had someone, one of our circle conveners, their co-conveners are cousins, and they have a lot of family international. And we had been talking and discussing and trying to think of a way to get their international family also involved. So, would love to talk more about this. And if there's any more questions, you have mine and Rio's emails, and I will also be sending out this. This recording will be uploaded onto YouTube, and you'll be able to access it there, as well as the any relevant links, the getting started guide, and the convener, all those links you'll get if you sign up. And the presentation will also be available for you to access. So thank you so much for coming, everyone. And if you have any more questions, you know how to reach us.
Thanks so much, everyone. Please don't hesitate to reach out. We appreciate you.